Hello, everyone. It is good to be with you. Happy Tuesday. Thank you so much for joining us for this important webinar, Show Me the Money, How to Have Hard Conversations About Equal Pay. This conversation is near and dear to my heart. I have been on the very shitty end of so many equal pay conversations. And the more and more I talk to women, people of color, LGBTQ plus community, it is clear that I am not alone, that so many of us face these incredibly steep obstacles. And for that reason, we are incredibly fortunate to be partnering with the Handel Group. I am so delighted to welcome Krissa Zendros-Boyce, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at the Handel Group and one of their head coaches, who is going to walk us through this conversation around how to have these hard conversations, what we can all bring to the table, how to manage this in a workplace. This conversation is incredibly significant for those of us who are in the United States because tomorrow is Equal Pay Day. Not many people know that. It does not receive enough attention. And so in anticipation of that, we're really grateful that you are joining us tonight and can even set your plans for how to move forward for tomorrow. For those of us who are joining us around the world, welcome, welcome. This conversation is never irrelevant. It is always important. And for that reason, I don't want to go too much further without just saying a huge piece of gratitude to the Handel Group for their partnership, for the incredible work that they lead and the resources that they offer, and we'll tell you a little bit about. If this is your first Be Social Change event, we're so happy that you are here. We hope you'll join us at future events. You'll get more information from us in an email. But in the meantime, I'm going to drop 2 links in the chat so that you can also check those out. Upcoming events and webinars, and they are all free to our Be Social Change members. So if you are interested in making a greater impact in your career and lifestyle, please join us. We'd be delighted to have you. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Krissa. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, everybody. I am Krissa, as Jen said. I am Chief Strategy Officer for Handel Group, and I'm also a senior coach. I've been a coach for a little bit over 10 years, but my background is actually in corporate America. I actually worked in the fashion industry. I was an executive doing merchandising, marketing, and branding for retail companies. And so a lot of my experience in this topic not only comes from coaching my clients, but also having had to advocate for my own equal pay. And it was not easy. So this topic is really near and dear to me because I lived it and then have seen my friends live it and have to navigate it, and it's not fun. So the fact that I can provide people resources and can bring both my experience and then my expertise to this conversation is really a privilege for me. So thank you for inviting me into your homes this evening or wherever you're listening in from to have this conversation. On that note, these conversations are really best when we can see people's faces. And so also, if you've ever led anything leading to black screens, not so much fun. So I do invite you to turn on your video screens. Please, please, please turn them on so we can see your faces and we can have interaction. It does make it better for everybody else. You get the most out of these experiences when you are really engaged and participating. A lot of the things that I can teach you, you really could probably Google. So the impact and the importance of what we talk about here is really about your engagement and how you go apply it. So I am inviting you to please turn on your screens. Waiting for people to do so. It's all good if you don't have makeup on, if you're not ready, it's all good.
We're getting a note that video is still disabled for some folks.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I got the bandwidth thing. So bandwidth is a real thing. We were just talking about it before we got on. So if you ever see me turn my video off, it's the bandwidth. I got it. Stacey, can you do anything about people's video being disabled?
It's actually enabled now. So the setting has been changed. So if they're able to turn it on, they should be able to now because the setting has changed.
Excellent. Let's see what we can do. People can get that done. I just want to see people's faces. So I'm thinking y'all can get on. Nope. Still not working. Okay, still doesn't work. Okay, so Stacey, on the back end, can you see what else you can do for us? We can get to see people's faces.
Yep, I'm going to work on that here for a couple of minutes, and I'll give you an update in just a few minutes, okay?
Amazing. Amazing. We're all loving technology. I was doing an Instagram live, and Instagram just didn't want to work. It was like, you can't do lives on your thing. And it's like, why? Just because. Can't do it. 5 minutes later, I was able to do a live, but the time I wanted to do it, I couldn't. Anyways, so it happened. So you guys, we're gonna get working on that. Stacey will give us an update. So sorry for not being able to see all of our faces, but we're gonna get started. You should know about this conversation tonight is we're gonna be using the chat. So you can type in questions into the chat, and I'll be prompting you when to do that as well. But you can also put questions in the chat just as you come up with them. You can also unmute yourself to ask a question as well. So please use those functions. Let's get you guys talking and sharing. Okay, so let me set the context for the conversation for tonight. The first context that I want to set is that asking for anything that you want, but in the context of this conversation, pay and pay equity is a process for standing up for yourself. The context really is like, this is how you advocate for yourself. This is how you stand for your advancement. This is how you stand for your highest ideals. And so for anybody who's done any work with Handel Group or has seen us before on any other platforms, you know that what we really care about is getting people to having their highest ideals be their reality and having people live in accordance with their highest ideals. The way that we like to frame that is like living in accordance with your dreams. So the context of this entire conversation is that asking for equal pay, woohoo, faces. Asking for equal pay, yes, so much better. Hi guys. Asking for equal pay is about really standing for that, okay? Standing for your highest values and your highest ideals. And then the other little disclaimer that I want to say at the start of this conversation is if you don't have a great relationship with your boss or in your company, don't go do this. Okay, you guys can ask me questions about that later, but the truth is that in order to get people to want to fight for you, you've had to have done the work on the relationship, or at least in your performance, to be able to go ask for the equal pay, okay, or ask for the raise and have the conversations and have them work out. Oftentimes people get really stuck on this. I coach people all the time. You have to make sure your relationship is in good standing to go advocate. Now, if you are in a position where like you are really drastically getting paid like a massive difference between you and your male colleagues, that's a different conversation, right? It's very different if you are severely underpaid and it really is like a discrimination issue. That's different. I'm talking about where like you're getting underpaid, it's not fair, but it's not hard, but it's not so drastic. You deserve to get equity, but it's not drastic. That's when you need to make sure your relationship is intact. Okay, so I want to make sure we distinguish between the two things because they are two very different things. Okay, and the different paths to how we go fix that. Okay, so today the context is, okay, you're in an organization, you're not getting paid all that you should be getting paid. Some people are getting paid more money than you. You want to be right sized, another way of saying it, and now we have to figure out how to go do that. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah? Okay, cool. All right. So we're going to be talking about 4 ingredients today, or 4 main pillars. All of the things that I'm going to be referencing today, or most of the things I'm going to be referencing today, are actually also a part of our Inner You program. So a little bit about Handel Group. Handel Group is an executive life coaching company. So we do one-on-one coaching and group coaching with individuals and companies. And we have various divisions, but and whether you're in our life division or in our career division or in our education division, it doesn't matter. Our process for coaching you is the same. We might be talking about different things, but the process is the same. And one of the hurdles to coaching is that it has a big time component to it and a big money component to it. So it can be expensive and time consuming. And so we've created this program, Inner You, to give people another option. If you don't have the time to really be investing with a coach every single week, or if you don't have the money at this point, we provided you what Inner You Career is, which is essentially taking you through everything a coach would take you through, but you do it on your own, learner-led, at your own pace, and you can go through and like go exactly where you need to go, right? Like, what's your pain point? How do I have a conversation? Or how do I deal with like my personality? So it allows you to go right in. Many of the things I'm going to be referencing are accessible in Inner You Career. Okay, so you guys should know that. I'll be referencing it, and Stacey will be putting it into the chat as well. The reason for that is there's a lot to say about a lot of these topics that we're going to be talking about. We can dig in to very, very deep levels. And so sometimes we need a little bit more context. And if you need more context, I will invite you guys to go check out Inner You Career, because it could be useful in this process for you. Okay, so more to come on that. All right, so here are the 4 things we're going to talk about today. First thing for asking for equal pay is getting really clear on your must-haves and knowing your why, or another way of saying it in coaching is your dream. Okay, why are we asking for this equal pay? What do we need here? Like, why are we doing this? The next ingredient is going to be doing your research and creating the business case. The third ingredient is going to be actually having the conversation and making the ask. And the fourth is the negotiation and being super clear on your deal breakers. So for each section, we're going to pause, have a conversation about it. There's going to be a little bit of thinking around it. And you're more than welcome to jump in and ask questions at any point. Okay. We also have time dedicated at the end for questions. So if you want to like just sort of table your questions for the end, rock on, you can do that too. But let's have this be interactive so we can learn from each other. It's more fun that way. Nobody wants to hear me talk for an hour, I promise. Not even my husband. Okay, so we're going to kick it off with the dream. So what's really important about this component about the dream is it's really for you. The truth is that to have any conversation with anybody and ask for anything is very vulnerable. And we can come up with 101 ways why we shouldn't do it, because it's scary and we can get rejected. That taps into some really deep human fears. Human beings don't want to be rejected. We don't want to get in trouble. We don't want to, lose our credibility. Like, we really care about being in the pack. And then we also have this really big fear around being poor, like having like poverty, like losing money. It's a real big fear of us because we want to make sure we're comfortable, we're safe, we're taking care of, there's security around us. And so whenever we're going to have conversations around money, there's always a risk that maybe we'll get fired, we'll get in trouble. Like, is it worth it to lose my salary for nothing? Like, we start to get into these discussions. Okay, so it's very, very vulnerable to go have the conversation around money. And for those of us who've practiced it, maybe it's not so bad. For those of us who have some money saved up, maybe it's not that big of a deal. Like, so we're all going to fall in a different gradient. Okay, but nonetheless, still vulnerable. And the reason why we need to have a dream to come from a place of where you're really anchored and your must-have, like what you absolutely want, is because it keeps you inspired and it keeps you moving despite whatever obstacles you might hit. Because this is where you want to go. This is your North Star. This is your purpose. This is your why. And so from what I can see on this call right now, I see mostly, my videos are off, so I can see mostly women on my first screen. And so here's the thing about that. I want to pause and just speak about women asking for equal pay. Specifically, because one of the things we know about women asking for more money is that women typically reinvest that money right back into their communities, right back to their families. So when we are not getting, and I'm saying we because I'm identified as a woman, when we are not getting equal pay, it hurts the whole family and the whole society. So there's a bigger context to all of this than just like us making more money. We should absolutely do that and absolutely want to like have more nice, cool things. But there's a bigger context to all of this. And what's important before you start having any of these conversations is landing yourself in your context. Like, what's your reason why? And getting really clear on your must-haves. Like, what do you absolutely want? You're in this job, and what do you absolutely want? You want 10% increase? You want 30% increase? You want that bonus structure to be changed? What is it? Because you have to be very clear to be able to go speak to that. And not only just speak to the facts of what you want, but also like the why, like what's hooking you here. Okay, so I want you all to take a moment and just get clear on like your why around asking for equal pay. And, some of you might be listening to this conversation because, you're just curious. Some of you might really need to go have a conversation like soon about this because it's coming up for you. And yet others just want strategies for how to negotiate when you're looking for a new job. All good. Either way, getting clear on your why is the first and most important step we all have to do. Because from that place, we can just be in our truth. Because that's your truth, your why. Okay. I'm gonna let you guys take a minute and write things down. If you have any questions, you can ask it now. But what you're asking, what you're writing down is your why for why you'd want to ask for equal pay, why you want to have the conversations around money, even if it's not equal pay, even if it's just more money, because you just want to be making more. What's your why? And any must-haves, any absolutely, that bonus structure has to get changed. That your salary must increase by X. Just get those things down for yourself. And by the way, we're doing this quickly, so you're not going to have all the time to do the thinking, but I want to give you guys a little bit of a taste because part of what makes these workshops be impactful is that people start doing some of the work now. So when you leave here, you can really do more of the thinking and start to implement.
Hey, Krista, real quick, there was a question in the chat a few minutes ago, and you may be addressing this later. This may be better for Q&A, so if so, you can just say, but a question was concretely, how can you find out or how can you, be informed about whether or not male coworkers are being paid more than you?
How can you find out if your male coworkers are better paid and how much? Okay, so the answer to this particular question depends on your organization. Some organizations make the information public and others don't. So it really depends on your company. There are some policies and organizations that are changing where you can go ask your HR department to share with you the salary information. Many companies are going away from the don't ask, don't tell, how much money do you make policy, which essentially really work to enforce people not getting paid equally. So many people are working to get rid of that. Thank us, the gay, for us speaking up about it. But it really depends on your company for right now. So the best place for you to start is to go to your HR department and find out what the policies are and not only what they currently are, but what's happening. Are they being updated? Because a lot of companies are in the process, especially with the year we just had, with all of the inequities that have been super, magnified with the pandemic. Companies are in the process of updating their handbooks. And so even though the policy might be X today, in the next couple of months, it may be Y. So you'd want to go, what are we updating this by? Is it happening this year? Dig into that information as well. Okay. Does that answer your question? I see you shaking your head. Okay, good. Cool. All right. So people, why do you want to ask for more money or get money? What's your reasoning? Tell me your why. Let's see, we got in the chat. Because I deserve it. Okay, cool. Better quality of life. Not being paid by my value. Excellent. Okay. Great. Anybody have a bigger context for themselves? Yeah, I'm leading multiple internal teams. Amy, I was in your court, Amy. I was leading multiple internal teams and my title and my salary didn't show it. So I can totally understand that one. And then saving for retirement. Excellent. Okay, and then Ash is saying, I work non-for-profit, not sure how to approach this. Clear. And doing a job, multiple people. Okay, got it. So we can hear some people want to be just paid what they're worth, knowing that their value is more than what they're currently getting paid. For other people, they're doing more work, which is quite common in companies. We end up putting a lot of work on people without right-sizing their salaries. That is a downfall in organizations for many reasons. Part of the reason why that happens in organizations is because we do need people on the team to take on new initiatives and new projects as our companies are expanding. But what often doesn't get taken care of is right-sizing people's salaries and titles. So here's the rule I give my clients. So I'm giving you the rule. So make sure you write this down for yourself. Okay. The rule I give my clients is that at least every quarter, you have a conversation with your boss about your performance and your salary and how any new job responsibilities and or shifts to your business may impact or should impact your salary. If you're sitting around and waiting for your boss to have that conversation with you, you'll be waiting for a very, very long time. Here's something you should know. I used to run a team of multiple people, 40 people used to work underneath me. It does not incentivize me to pay my people more money. It just doesn't, because I have to make them profitable, right? Like I really do need them to work and help like make the company make money. And so unless my team members were coming to me to come tell me that like, hey, you've been giving me more work and I need to right size this, unless they were drawing attention to it, it wouldn't be something top of mind for me because I'm managing to a budget. So you want to make sure that you put, as we like to say in coaching, you're the author of your life. You put the pen in your hand so that you go ask for what you need. You're the one managing the process. You're following up. And it's not about, you know, some people feel like this might be too pushy or too demanding or like overstepping. No, it's about you being in charge of the trajectory of your career. And above and beyond that, you being in charge for your financial future. Because what we do know is when we don't get regular raises and we don't get regular promotional changes in our title, that can cost us jobs down the line. And like, while it might seem like no big deal, it's only $5,000 or like only like, you know, a $2 increase, whatever it might be for you. While it might seem small, it does actually add up over time. And that's one of the reasons why women end up making less money than men in many circumstances, because our structure of getting promoted and getting raises isn't at the same rate. Okay, let's see. Admin services at the same rate as a designated accountant. Sue, are you asking a question or are you just sharing, Sue? You can let us know in the chat or you can say it out loud. I'm paid less than my value. I'm less respected, not solicited for more interesting tasks than I should. Okay, got it. If you're, for the comment that I just read, I'm paid less than my value, I'm less respected, not solicited for more interesting tasks than I should. If you're finding yourself in that position, write your dream out and your must-haves. Step number 1 is super important to you and a really important place for you to start, because clear on what you don't have right now and what you're not getting. We're clear on the current reality, as we like to call it in coaching. But we have to understand what's the dream, where do we want to go, and then create the plan to get there. And sometimes it may not be the place that you're in. We have to get really clear on that. Okay, but we have to know your North Star. The next ingredient is doing the research and the business case. To the question that just came in the chat, yep, we're going to talk about the conversation in a little while. So hang on for that. Okay, so this ingredient is, once you get clear on your why, once you get clear on the context, like why do you want more money, then you want to get clear on, and then also the must-haves, like why is this happening? Like, what do you really want out of this? Is it more bonus? Is it a higher salary increase? Is it more vacation time? Like, what else is going to work out for you here? What's going to make you feel happy in your role? Then what you want to do is create the business case for it. And the business case is really where you go do the research to come back to your boss or your company to say, hey, like, here's what's missing. This is what I found out. I found out that, in this company, all these people at this level get paid this. I found out that people at my job level with my degree get paid this. Like, you're going to do the research. You're going to make it easy for people to say a yes to you. You're going to provide all the information. Here's a really important piece of what's true about humanity. The person with the most information wins every single time. So you want to be armed with all the information. It's really important. A lot of times when we're going to ask, especially for money, we'll go ahead and say, hey, I really been doing a great job this year. I'd like to, get paid more. I'd like a promotion. I'd like a raise. And when we go do that, that's lovely. Clear on your ask, clear on like what you want. But like, why should somebody give that to you? It's really important. You want to make sure that you capture all the levels of what your boss is going to be thinking about, because your boss likely is not going to be the last stop for this conversation. If you're working in a bureaucratic company, a large company, okay, there are multiple levels to how you're going to go get a raise or money. And that was my story. So I will share my story. I was working in a really large company. It had multiple divisions, multiple groups, and I was in one of the main groups. And when I went to go ask for getting right size, and I'll share my story in more detail in a second, it was a large conversation. In fact, it took me almost a year to get my salary adjustment, because my ask was not as simple as like, I just deserve more money, because it was true, I did, and I was doing all the work. But the problem really was that if they had to right size my salary, there was a bunch of other people that had to get right sized too. And the implications on the organization were massive. And to deal with that from an HR perspective was a real company issue. And so saying yes to me was going to be a challenge, right? So in a big company, you're dealing with the bureaucracy of what it takes to make a change. And that's just the reality of what you contend with. So you need to know that going into it, and need to be prepared to speak to the facts and the business case for why they should take on the bureaucratic mess, okay? And then a small company, if you're in a startup or a non-for-profit, there really is a reality of there's finite resources. There really is a reality sometimes that like there just isn't enough funding. And so that process looks different, because then you have to go make an ask. You have to go make an ask and then understand that like, while your boss might want to give you money or can't give you money, there might be like a time lag for it based on funding. Okay, so there are multiple ways to look at this depending on which organization you are in. So when you go do your research, you have to also be able to speak to not just collectively people at your title or at your level of, degrees in school, but also your industry. So when I have people do this, and when I'm coaching them, I have them go do a very robust analysis about not just their job title, but also like the industry that they are in, so they can be best armed with the information. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? One of the best things about the world that we're living in right now is that there's access at your fingertips. When I was asking for equal pay, there was no access. It really was like maybe Glassdoor. I don't remember what it was. It was very hard to get information. So we're in a different time where information is really readable and it's easy to compile. And here's the other bonus, that companies know that the information is very easy for people to get their hands on at this point. And so they're doing what they can to actually make most salaries and titles be equitable. Okay, so there's already a lot of work that's been going on. So I wanted to make you guys feel assured that while your research will be useful, companies are in the know, and they will know that you know too. So it's harder for them to go, give you some answer that is not a real answer. Okay. Any questions about the business case? So what I'd like for you guys to do is take a moment and just write down for yourself, like, do you have the facts? Clear you're working hard, clear people are getting more money than you, but do you have the facts? Do we know how much more? Do we know what your title is going for? Do we know your industry standard? Like, do you have these facts? And if you are like, kinda, you have to go do some more research. Okay, so just take a moment and reflect and tell the truth about it. I didn't have the facts. So what I will share with you guys is the way I found out I was getting paid less money is I actually bumped into somebody in the hallway. Okay, and like as I bumped into him, his performance review fell on the ground and coffee spilled all over me and him as I was drinking it as I was walking, which is why I bumped into him. But that's a story for another day. And I bent down to pick up the paper, and I was like wiping the coffee off of it and saw his salary. And this guy had a job that was like literally a quarter of what my job was. He was a little bit older than me. He had kids, And I was younger, but like had a bigger job. And I was blown away by the number. I was like, oh my God, that's how much money he makes. And I really tried to ignore it. I was like, nope, doesn't matter what he makes. That's not about me. What's about me is what I'm doing here. He's in a different department. Like, doesn't matter. And I couldn't get it out of my head. I could not get it out of my head. The only number I knew was that he made more money than me. By a lot, by the way, right? Well, just so you guys are like 30% more money than me, like a real significant number. And, you know, I was managing teams of people. I was traveling all over the country. He sat at a desk job, right? So, but the only fact I had is that he made that much more money than me. Wasn't sufficient to go into a conversation. I really did spend the time doing my research in trying to compile as much information as I could so I can go in super prepared to talk to my boss and to like start the conversation process and the process of getting what I wanted. So you have to make sure that you know exactly all your facts. Okay. Stacy or Jen, anything you guys want to share about what we're talking about? If you want to, you're more than welcome to jump in about asking for equal pay or doing your research.
I'm happy to share, Krista, that's a really powerful example. I know from my own experience in the nonprofit sector, and I think we probably have many nonprofiteers here, that there are a ton of resources out there that describe exactly what each level of nonprofit sector professional should be making, dependent on your city, dependent on your years of experience. Things like PNP Staffing has a really good one for New York City residents. I'm happy to recommend others. But that was crucial too in my own experience where, if I may just share my story very quickly.
Go for it.
I was working in a nonprofit job. Literally, I slept underneath my desk to save commute time because I was so desperately working on this massive fundraising event. And it was amazing. It doubled in revenue from the year before. It tripled the number of attendees. It was a really successful fundraising event. And I had known that my male predecessor had received a huge bonus for all of the work that he put into that event. And when I actually took the time to look through the budgets, I could figure out the exact number of how much he had been given. After the event, after the massive success comes around, I get an envelope on my desk for a sixth of what he had been given. And I was irate. I was burnt out beyond all belief. I was sick. I had made myself sick from working too hard. And there was no bonus even close to compensating for that. So I actually, over a series of 5 conversations, tried to negotiate with my supervisor, who I had a good relationship with, tried to negotiate for things like maybe a change of title that would compensate or a raise of salary. I wasn't even hell-bent on having the same bonus. But by the time the sixth conversation rolled around, I was done. I didn't want to be having the conversation, and I didn't want to have to be fighting for my own equality in this way that felt demeaning and intractable. So I actually had the great privilege of a potential another role lined up, and I told my boss that I was leaving. Despite everything I loved about the organization and wanted to keep contributing, it wasn't going to work. I walked out of her office door and hopped on the subway, and this was at 42nd Street, Grand Central Station. When I reached 14th Street, Union Square, the first stop on the express train, I had a call from my executive director saying, please come back. We will raise your salary, give you an equivalent bonus. Actually, we'll give you twice the bonus that your male predecessor had received, and we'll change your title. All of this was because I fought really, really hard for it, and I was willing to walk away. But my real hope for people is that they don't have to reach that point.
Yeah. Jen, you touched on so many great points in that recounting of your experience. So thank you for that, because it really actually encapsulates a lot of what we're talking about tonight. And the thing I want to just go back to, because we were talking about getting the research, is that it's important to know your industry and go to the industry resources, because that's the best information you can get. And we really do have access to that now. So if you don't know what your industry resources are, go find out. You really should be in the know. You need to be well-versed in this at all times, not just when, it's coming up to you to go ask for equal pay. So please make sure you take that note from Jen, because it allowed her to be a more powerful communicator about what she needed and wanted from her boss. Okay. Jen, we have a did you take that offer question for you.
I did. And I worked to keep advocating for better pay in the organization before eventually leaving because it wasn't getting better.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Okay. The next step after you have done your business case research is to have the conversation. So Stacy, will you please put in the chat where this is in Interview Career? Okay. So I'm going to take a moment to pause here. We don't learn how to have communication and good conversations. It's not something we're taught how to do. Most of us really do flail and flounder around in having conversations, especially ones that are really difficult and ones that are very complex. So one of the things that we do in our coaching is teach people how to have beautiful, difficult conversations. And we teach that no matter what's going to happen in the conversation, what makes it beautiful and worth it is that you spoke up for yourself, as I said in the beginning of this call, but also that you got clarity and transparency and now can make a decision for how to move forward. Okay, so there's a whole module. Interview Career is broken down into many modules. There's a whole module for how to have a hard conversation. And if you're somebody who struggles with communication, I really deeply recommend listening to this module, getting Interview Career, because this is priceless. We all need to know how to do this, whether it's giving feedback to an employee, having a difficult conversation with your spouse, asking for equal money. This always comes to play. Okay, 90% of what we do in our day-to-day life is communicating with other people. So I highly recommend that. For the purposes of the conversation today, I'm going to take you through some of the how-tos for how to have a hard conversation as it pertains to asking for equal pay. Okay, but there's nuances to this depending on the type of conversation you're going to go have. Okay, so again, first we have to know where we're going. What's the dream? What are your must-haves? And then what's your business case? And then we got to go actually have the talk, like go tell our boss, the person that we report into, hey, this is a reality for me. And there is an art to doing that. Okay, there's an art to it. So I'm going to walk you through. First piece of the art for how to do it is that you need to script out your conversation. This has happened to all of us. How many of you have walked out of a conversation and go, you know what, damn, I should have said it like that. Or I wish I said that. Or you're like, shit, I forgot that. It happens all the time, right? Or you're like recounting the conversation in your head and you're like, it sounds better this way. Why did I think about that in the moment? The reason why that happens is because we usually get pretty edgy or anxious or uncomfortable having difficult conversations. And so we're a little flustered in our communication. So the best antidote is to script it out and to practice it. And sometimes I'll tell my clients, if you're really nervous, to even bring your hard conversation with you. Like there are times I've had to have conversations with my husband or a friend where I'm like, hi, I wrote it down. This is my paper. I'm going to be looking at my paper because I'm a little worried. You know, I messed up a lot. I need to ask you for something, but it's okay. You can bring your notes with you. People will be mad if you can't remember it all. Okay. But scripting it is really important so that you are set up to be the most confident and articulate in that conversation. Okay. The next piece, okay, is what goes into the conversation, what goes into that script. Okay. So here's the things that go into the script. Number one, your dream. Your dream. Okay. Does anybody here manage people or have direct reports? Yeah. Okay, got it. Anybody here have kids who are old enough to ask for things, like for real things? Yeah. Okay, got it. When people come to ask you for things, how do you feel about it? It's kind of annoying. Let's all be honest. Usually it's like, really? I have so many things to do. Now you're adding on top of that? Really? Like one more thing. The truth is, right, that bosses and parents really only can deal with so many things in a day or in a week. And we tend to deal with the things that are urgent versus important. We tend to deal with the things that have to get done in the moment. Most of the time. Some of us are a little bit better than others, but mostly it's like, what's urgent? This is why we answer all of our emails and the big project gets left undone until the end of the day. right? Because they're urgent, the emails. So the thing about going in to ask for something is that you have to get that the person on the other side has bandwidth too, has things going on above and beyond your ask. And so we have to set them up to be able to hear the ask and care about the ask and get how urgent and important it is. And the way that we do that best is by landing people in the why, landing people in the dream. And what this mostly does actually not only just get them to be able to hear it, but to also get people to really get you and to truly actually advocate for yourself, not just make an ask, but truly tell the truth about where you are. Okay, so in the first line of the script, what you're writing out for the person is, what's your dream? Hi, my boss. I'm coming to you today because I want to have a conversation about my compensation. The truth for me really is that I want to be the breadwinner for my family. Or I really want to make sure that I teach my kids how to go after making money. Whatever is real for you, it doesn't matter. Okay? You just land them in the truth for yourself, the context. And I'm super committed to this particular truth. This is really important to me. It's actually something that I'm gonna stand behind, and I'm coming to you because I respect you and appreciate you as my boss, and I want you to know this because I haven't been saying it. Really clear, you're standing behind your must-haves. The second part of writing the script for yourself is that you want to tell why this is difficult for you to have the conversation. The reason why we ask people to do this in having a conversation is because if I had said to you, Stacy, I'm going to pick on Stacy for a second. Hey, Stacy, I want to have this conversation about my compensation. So if I come to you and I say, but Stacy, you know what? I'm a little bit nervous about having this conversation with you because I think this might cause a rift in our relationship, or I think you might get upset with me. What it does for Stacy is that it disarms her. She's likely not going to get upset or be the person that actually is going to, show me that they're going to get upset in the conversation. It disarms the other person because it sets a tone, but it also allows you to really get out of your head what's making you nervous, so you can go have the full-on conversation. This part of the script is actually a strategy to make sure that the other person is able to hear you. Okay? Super important. It really just takes all the angst or anger or anticipation out of the room, and it just level sets. Once you state why it's hard for you, if there's anything you need to own, I've been avoiding this for a long time, or I've been upset about it for a long time, you should say that too, because it just puts you on an even playing field with the person. And then you go into your business case. Hi, so I want to make more money, but here's what I found out in actually thinking about this. I make less money than these people. I found out this about the industry standard. So you're going in and you're presenting your business case as the meat of your conversation. In the preparation of this conversation, you also want to be able to have some questions that you want to go ask your boss. Part of what you're scripting out is what's the follow-up? You found out all this information about the business case, but what are the questions you want to ask? Why is this the case? Are there policies that are in place that are actually making this be the reality in the company? Is there something I need to know about structure here? You want to be prepared with questions to ask, but you want to know that your boss may not have the answers. Do not get frustrated if your boss does not have the answers. You want to ask the questions, and if they don't have the answers, you say, great, let's set up a time to follow up on this. Jen spoke about this earlier. She said she had 5 conversations, Jen? Yeah, 5. Do not think you're having one conversation about equal pay and getting a salary, you're going to get your increase. You're not. I had many, many conversations, and it took me almost a year to get my salary increase. So this initial conversation is just setting the tone. It's making the initial ask and then setting up the follow-up. You're going to find out a bunch of information in this conversation, and you're going to set up the follow-ups with your boss. Okay, great. You don't have the answers for these 5 things. When can I follow up with you to have a deeper discussion? Let's set that up. And you be in charge. You author when the conversation happens. Remember, it's your money on the line. It's your relationship, it's your reputation with yourself and your relationship with yourself on the line too. Okay.
So you have a question in the chat from Demi that says, what if she says, if you think it's going to make me angry or affect our relationship, don't ask. Any recommendations for a situation like that?
Got it. That's a good one. Okay. If somebody does say that to you, you might want to go like, okay, great. It might make you angry and upset, but I still need to ask it for you. I still need to ask you. The problem is that when you're asking for equal pay, it does also put your boss in an uncomfortable situation because now they have to go to their boss and ask for the money. And most people don't have the tools to go negotiate these kinds of conversations. And they certainly sometimes don't even have the relationships to be able to go advocate with their boss. So not only are you dealing with the dynamic between you and your boss, you're dealing with the dynamic between your boss and their boss, and so forth. So you also really have to get that you're training your person for how to go have these conversations on your behalf too. And sometimes it's okay. So Demi, if you know that like your boss is going to get upset, you can go, great, you're probably going to get upset with me today, but I really need to have this conversation. This is out of full respect for yourself and for myself to go have it. If you're upset, we can come back. So just because someone gets upset doesn't mean that you don't have the conversation. It means that you get to the point of upset, you go, great, let's come back for the rest of this. I'll come back and present the business case tomorrow. No problem. So wherever you get stopped, that's great. Just go back and restart. Be ready to go have multiple conversations about this. It is the reality that you are going to have to go do that in most cases. In some cases, you may not, but this is the reality. When we teach people in coaching, it's like, a lot of times we'll get, it's like, why do I have to? I don't want to. Like, this is annoying. It shouldn't be this hard. Thinking, it's real human thinking. It's true. It shouldn't be this hard, but it is. And if you fall prey to that thinking, you're really just listening to that brat in your head. And in coaching, we teach people that there are different excuses or logic or reasoning that we use sometimes to talk ourselves out of doing things. And your brat is one of them. Your brat is the voice of, for those of you guys who have kids, I don't want to, you can't make me, I feel like it, I'm not in the mood, I'm not motivated, I'm not sleepy, I'm too sleepy, okay? Like it's the brat, the temper tantrum. It really is. And so do not fall for your brat. This is you advocating for yourself. Go advocate for yourself, okay? We also, by the way, have the chicken, which is the voice of fear. And that's the voice that doesn't want you to fail, mess up, look bad, ruin your reputation. And by the way, sometimes when we're going to ask for money, it could be our reputation on the line. Sometimes that is really the case. People might think that it might hurt your ability to connect with your boss. It might actually, hurt your reputation a little bit because you're asking for more money and people might think that means something. Like there might be judgment associated, like could happen. True. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Your chicken only wants to talk you out of anything that's scary. But the truth is that anything that's worth it in our life lives on the other side, and very cliche, of our comfort zone. Everything really does. I know it's cliche, but it's true. Okay, so your brat and your chicken are not going to help you here. And by the way, brat and chicken, I think, are module 3. If you want to know more about brat and chicken and how this plays out for us in all levels of our life, it's in module 3 and under you. Okay, so you've now had the conversation. You've set up the follow-up with your boss. You're going back to do more fact finding. You're doing all these, you're going back a bunch of times. Now the part that we are in is in the negotiation. Okay. The negotiation, unlike the dream, is about knowing your deal breakers. Your dream is about knowing your must-haves, what you absolutely want, but part of the negotiation is knowing your deal breakers, knowing what you're not going to stand for, knowing what you're not going to tolerate, and how you're being treated, and what's given to you, and how much money you're making or not making. Okay, so negotiation we're going to look at in a couple different levels. First thing you need to know about negotiation is that you cannot be an empty threat. If you're an empty threat about what you're going to do or potentially do, in these conversations, you lose credibility. So what I advise all my clients to go do when they're going to go negotiate is get really clear on the deal breakers that include what are you not going to tolerate? Number one. What are the things you're willing to negotiate on, and what are the things you're not willing to negotiate on? Like, where are you really like, no, this is my floor. I'm not going lower than this. And then what are the places where you're willing to go lower? Okay. And then what's your tap out point? Like when and where are you willing to walk away? Now, what's interesting is Jen spoke about this because Jen walked away conversation number 6. Or about number 6, right? And so here's what's interesting is that sometimes we do have the privilege of being able to just be like, you know what, I'm done, I'm gonna go. Other times what I tell my clients is, you may not have that privilege. But what we need to do is prepare for what steps we have to take to be able to get there. So part of like crafting your negotiation is going, okay, if I hit these mile markers, then here's what I have to start planning for so that I can, leave at this point or have this next conversation at this point, like whatever the next piece is for you. But you can't negotiate effectively until you know exactly what you're willing to lose and what you're willing to fight for or what you're willing to walk away from. So get really clear on your deal breakers, as we just discussed, and do not be an empty threat. Also for parents, do not be an empty threat to your kids. They will not fall for it. Okay. But here's the thing about negotiation for everybody. And this is where I want to spend some time. Negotiation really is one of those places where we sometimes have a bad relationship with even the idea of negotiating. So take a moment and reflect, like, how do you feel about negotiation? And if you want, you can put in the chat. I know there's some questions. We're going to come back to some of the questions that you guys put in the chat, but how do you feel about negotiation? Like, are you happy to do it? Do you love doing it? Are you just like, oh God, please don't make me? How do you feel? Demi says uncomfortable. Great. Okay. So much anxiety. Yeah, for sure. Please don't make me. That's how I felt too. Like, oh, please don't make me do this. I don't want to. Yes. I get so emotional, so I can't. It depends on between my level of respect. Great. Okay. The reason why we all hate negotiation so much and why we don't actually advocate for ourselves is because we're going to have to go spar with somebody. What you need to know about being able to negotiate is that if you're clear on your must-haves and you're clear on your deal breakers, everything else is negotiable. There's so much more negotiable. Okay, so when I was asking for my salary adjustment, I really just wanted my salary to be increased by a certain percent, and I wanted my bonus to be the same as all the other executives. I really wasn't asking for craziness. I really wasn't, right? Must-have was that. Deal breaker was not getting any of it. In fact, I was even happy to get some of it this year, the year that I asked for it, and the rest of it the following year, because I'd asked for it sort of later in the year. Like, I was fine with that. And there was so much more room for negotiation in the middle, right? There was so much more gray space. If you're not clear on your must-haves and your deal breakers, it'll always feel anxious to you because you're being wishy-washy about what it is that you want. So you really have to anchor yourself in those two places, must-haves and deal breakers. Okay. And then this is anxiety provoking and it is emotional because we can get rejected. It's scary. It's really scary. But that's why we talked about in the very beginning about being very clear on your context, on your why. Why are you doing this? I was really clear. Like, so I am the only person in my family who's ever worked a corporate job. My parents are immigrants. They don't speak the language. They really did like go to 5th grade. They, had no education. I really did grow up in that family, right? And then I was really clear that like my parents had to take crap from people all the time because they were not educated and couldn't speak the language. And then how dare I go take crap? Like my context was
Carissa, we just lost your sound. We'll pause for a second here.
You hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you guys hear? Go ahead. Sorry, I don't know what's happening.
Nope, you were just gone for a few seconds there, so you can probably just pick right back up.
Okay, great. So I was saying about like my context was my parents, right? Like, how dare I like go tolerate when they tolerated so much? Like, wow, that was my context. So part of what allows us to do negotiation beautifully is that we get clear about that. Your why. Clear your why, clear your must-haves, clear on your deal breakers. Okay? Now, I want to just stay here for one more minute, because what's true is that we have what we call in coaching a tagline. And we have taglines about everything. We have taglines about how we feel about exercise, or how we feel about our boss or our friends or our significant other. But we have taglines even about the things that we do, like negotiation. And a tagline essentially is something you believe to be true about that thing. And for those of us who know some of like the DEI terminology, we know this term called confirmation bias, which basically means whatever you believe you prove, right? Whatever you believe you prove, you see it over and over again, your brain goes, yep, that's right. It's the same thing with our taglines. Whatever we believe we prove. So if you believe negotiation is uncomfortable, it's uncomfortable. If you believe you're bad at negotiation, you're bad at it. So it really does matter that you take the time to go, what's my tagline? So what some of you wrote in the chat is your tagline, uncomfortable, so anxiety. Let's think about that for a second. If that's what it is for you, how do we think this is going to go? You're not going to be the most powerful version of yourself. So what I invite you all to do right now is think of a more powerful tagline for a negotiation. It'll make me feel proud. I'll be badass. Who cares if it's uncomfortable? Anxiety for breakfast. Like, let's rock. Like, whatever it is for yourself, you have to redefine how you relate to it. Because if you don't redefine it, it will be impossible to go do it. Okay? So, everybody, please take a moment to write down your current tagline for negotiation. And then what do you need it to be? And by the way, if you're like, oh my God, this is like a mind game. Yes, it is a mind game. It's all a mind game, actually. You're right. It is true. Perspective is everything. It's the most annoying fact about life. Perspective really is everything, guys. It's true. And you do prove whatever you believe. It's true. So why don't we prove what we want to believe? Why don't we prove that I'm a great negotiator? I get exactly what I want. Why don't we go prove that? Okay. So yes, beliefs are very powerful. Anxiety for breakfast. Yay, Demi, go you. So, okay, if you're not writing in the chat for yourself, write it down. It's powerful to know that you're able to actually switch your perspective. This is really where it all starts. It all starts with understanding perspective and setting that up for success for yourself so you can go do the things you need to go do. Without the right mind framework, it's impossible. Anybody have any questions about the believing what you prove or proving what you believe and taglines? Okay, so let me just recap all that we discussed for how to go ask for equal pay so you have it all synthesized for you. And then we'll go into open questions. Okay, so first up, you need to have your context and your why. What are your must-haves? You must do your research and have your business case set up. You need to prepare for your conversation and script it and make sure you're following the format so it's beautiful. And know that you're going to have multiple conversations. Do not get bratty about it. Like, I don't want to, why do I have to do this? Because it's your money and you should go fight for it. It's your reputation, go fight for it. And then you have to be willing to do the negotiation, which means you have to know what your deal breakers are, what you're not willing to tolerate, and what your floor is, and what your tap out point will look like. And you have to sometimes think about how to make that happen for you. Like, what's the design, what's the plan to have that tap out point be available. Okay. And then if you have a bad relationship with negotiation, Get to work on that. Start proving you're a good negotiator. Start playing in small ways. Ask for some time off with your boss. Start to negotiate with your family or with your friends. Practice to build some confidence so that you can start to feel comfortable. And the last thing, which we haven't talked about yet, but which is also really important, is all this is lovely to know all these steps and to like share with one another. But unless we actually put it in like physical reality and put it in some level of accountability, it doesn't really matter, right? Because implementation is everything. We all know a lot of things. Like, I really do know the best way to not be a procrastinator is put everything in your calendar and do it when you said you were going to do it. But that rarely happens. I do know that though. I've read many books about how to be effective with time. Not that effective with time, people. Okay. So what actually gets you effective with time or with anything is to have somebody hold you accountable. So if you're like, I know I have to go have a conversation, I know I need to go deal with my boss, I know I need to go ask for more money, get someone to hold you accountable, a friend on this workshop, somebody in your network. Make a promise, what we call it in coaching. And a promise has a personal edge to it, like it's something you're doing for yourself. Make a promise, tell somebody by when you're going to do it, and have them hold your feet to the fire. And if you want more than that, right? If you're like interested in more than that, Stacey and I at the end of this will talk about Inner You Career. Part of what we do in Inner You Career is we actually have built-in accountability with a bunch of people who are going through and taking on their lives. And you can have accountability in a community that's already looking for that. That's a whole other conversation. But go find your people. You have your people. Go find them. Go ask them to support you. You don't need another community if you don't need it. You have a sister, you have a friend, you have a spouse. Go ask them. Okay. Ready for questions. Stacey, would you do me a favor and go through the chat and let me know what I need to answer?
The last question, we've covered most of it as we've gone through. The last question that's there now is, how do you negotiate with a negotiator?
Ooh. Okay. How do you negotiate with a professional negotiator? Well, Sue, I'm imagining that you work for this professional negotiator, which means you watch them and you observe them. And so the best way to get yourself prepared to negotiate with somebody who's really good at doing something is to observe them and watch what they do. And so part of your research, part of your business case, like that portion of these steps that we talked about, is going to be watching your person and seeing how they do what they do, so you're prepared for what they're going to go do. That's part one. The other part of it is to actually say to them, I know you're a good negotiator and better than me, but I'm still going to go make my ask and I'm still going to go fight my fight. And I really do want you to hear me out. Like, part of it is just calling out what's the truth. If they're really a professional person, they're not going to get better. You're not going to get better than them in a short period of time. No, it's my brother. LOL. Got it. Okay. Clear. Still watch him and see how he does what he does, so you can be able to go communicate with him and learn from him. How do you negotiate for equity with a founder? Got it. Anybody else have this question? How to negotiate for equity? Yep. Okay. So negotiating for equity is actually something that is really hot and trendy at the moment, because so many people are working in startups, and so many startups are happening all around us for all the various reasons that we are all living through. And equity is one of the ways in which people are willing to take on good talent without paying for them in the current moment. So what I recommend about negotiating for equity is being really clear on what your market rate is for, like, in your industry, and understanding what the differential is versus what you're getting paid. So what are you getting paid versus what's your market rate? And that is where you want to start the conversation, because usually equity is given to people when they're not getting paid all of what they should be getting paid, because they're working in a startup where the funds are limited. So that's where you want to start. The other piece is understanding the operating agreement and asking the founder, like, what's the operating agreement? Is it set up structurally to get equity, to share equity, and what's already been given to people and try to do your homework there, because depending on how the company has set it up, whether it's A shares or B shares, it will matter to what's accessible to you. And even, does the equity matter to you? Because sometimes if it's set up like B shares, for example, if you leave the company, you may never see any of that money. So you want to get really clear about what you're asking for. So again, it goes back to that business case, doing your research, doing your homework about what's available. The rest are all freelancers. Okay, got it. You're the only other employee. Great. So if you have all those facts, then go in and ask for what you would want, but make sure you have all your facts first. And part of like going in to ask for all you want, Christine, is understanding what's given to other people in your industry. And you might find out there's a range, but you want to go find out what that is. And just by the way, standard from what I've seen in working with people is about like 1 to 3% standard. That might be different for your industry. Okay, any other questions?
And Krista, you just have a few minutes left. So however you want to structure that, you got a few minutes left.
Great. Anybody else have questions? How to negotiate as one-off projects contractor? Great question. It depends, Ash, on what you're going after. So people who are their own, like a contractor or freelancer, if I'm coaching people who are contractors or freelancers, what I tell them is like, you have the right to go, I'm not negotiating on my rate. Like, you really do have the right to go, this is my rate, pick me or not. And you have to be willing to stand in that. Like, it goes back to like, what are your must-haves and what are your deal breakers? And then go finding the clients who are willing to pay for you. You're really gonna have to make that call for your business for yourself. But when it comes to negotiation, if you're asking that specific question, where I want to land you in is that you want to be clear on like your sliding scale. And if you haven't really sat to think about what's your project fee, what's your hourly rate, like if you haven't really think about that sliding scale for yourself, you should sit and design that and come up with like what's your dream around what that looks like for you, because otherwise it'll be hard for you to negotiate. Okay, so Stacy just put into the chat, if you need to get in contact with me, you can. I'm really happy to talk to people about how to have conversations around equal pay. My calendar doesn't have a lot of time, but there's space allocated for anybody from this particular workshop that wants to talk about this with me. So you'd go into my Calendly link and set up 30 minutes, and we would go over whatever you want to go over based on this conversation we had tonight. If you are interested in getting a one-on-one coach that can really help you craft the conversation, what you can practice with the coach, they can help you in like re-scripting your tagline with negotiation. You have that option as well. That's where the consultant link is in the chat. Stacy just put it in there. And the 30-minute consultation. Stacy didn't put my link in yet. Calendly link is going to go in a minute. Sorry, she put in the consultation link if you want to learn about getting a coach. And then if a coach is out of your price range and you wanted some support and you wanted to just get a community around you to support you in your goals, as we mentioned, we have Inner You Career that we're offering to you guys. I will just make one little play about this, Inner You Career. We're offering it at $325 today, which is like really, for what the program is, like really, really a steal. But as of March 31st, we're no longer offering it on a discount or on this deep discount, where it's going to change for all of our events. So if it's something that you want, or if you have been listening to us before, I really do recommend you get it now, because we are raising the price on it. And so it's $325 for this event, and the code information is in the chat that Stacy posted. Also with Inner You Career, you get all the modules that you would get in a coaching program. So it's 12 coaching modules plus some bonus ones, including taglines, how to manage time, and also how to have hard conversations and how to be a better leader. And then also you get access to all of our own master classes that we do, which is a lot of accountability, and you get one-on-one coaching from an HG coach. All right.
And Krista, your link there in the what I posted just a couple of posts ago at 6:15, I believe it was, the post for me. There's a link to a 30-minute consultation with the coach. And then yours is directly below that. That goes directly to your calendar that says schedule time to talk with Krista here. That goes directly to your Calendly link.
Oh, great. Okay, cool.
And just a reminder also, if you all need to save the chat so you have those links, just go into the chat area and those 3 dots over to the right in the box. You can save this chat and save all the links here too, just as a reminder.
Excellent. Okay, everybody. Jen, anything that you want to add or say?
I want to say a huge thank you to you, Krista. This conversation has been really impactful. I'm so grateful for both the high level and the really practical skills that you've equipped our community with when it goes to having these conversations moving forward. We so value and appreciate this conversation. Thank you so much for leading us through it.
Great. Thank you for having me, everybody.
Awesome. And everyone will receive a follow-up email with links to this limited time offer. So make sure to check that out in the next hour if you are interested. Interview Career, as Krista mentioned, is an amazing value. So check that out. Let us know if you have any questions. We'll include some information about Be Social Change. And so appreciate everyone joining us tonight. Have a great one, all.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.